What's up everybody, it's Barry with Vulcan Glass Art Studio. Today we're going to be doing the third project in our Intro to Glass series, the Monet bead. Now the Monet bead is going to be our first exploration into using frit to color our glass. So as always, all the tools and glass that you need are going to be on screen. Make sure you like the video, hit that subscribe button, and let's get started. Alright, so the first step in your Monet pendant is to go ahead and just do your gather, same as we have in pretty much every other bead so far. With this particular project, it has a lot of variation in the colors that you can use both as your frit and as your solid colored rod. I tend to use a lot of striking colors, amber purples. Right now I'm going to be using Red Elvis Strike, Amber Purple, a little bit of Amazon Night, and some Purple Luster. And I've just found that strikers look really good, but play around, experiment, and see how things look for you. So this gather is going to be just a little bit bigger than the gather for your mushroom beads. You're not really going to be adding a whole ton to this piece during the process, so your initial bead you want it to be reasonably large, and that's going to be so like that. That's probably pretty good. And then you're going to go ahead and set it top down onto your marver and then spin. And that creates that disc. That's going to be kind of the basis for your structure. So now you're going to take your color rod and add a few dots in random places. So I'm going to take my Red Elvis Strike. And just kind of put 3 dots. And then I'm going to take my Double Amber Purple and do the exact same thing. Just 2 dots. Don't bunch your color in the middle. Make sure that it goes all the way out to the edge. Then we're going to heat the bottom and melt in those dots. You can stamp if you need to. And then make sure it gets nice and hot. And you can see over here we have this pile of frit. And that is medium grade Amazon Night and Purple Luster with a little bit of large grade Star White. So just put them together, mix them all around, make sure that you're going to get an even spread everywhere on your bead. Heat up the back and press. And you want to hold it there for a second when you press. That way you actually adhere a good amount of frit to your piece. Once you have all that frit on there, go ahead and melt it in. I'm holding it out in the flame like this because that Star White is finicky. And then press on the graphite again, a little bit of a twist. Try to make sure your disc stays perpendicular to your rod. It'll make the rest of the process a lot easier. So you're going to turn your torch down. Take your clear 4mm. Heat up a section of the glass. Make sure it's nice and hot, and it needs to be a sizable section per piece. You're going to attach it, twist, and then pop it off. And you can see we got that nice, or not. You have a nice twist of glass in there. Do that 2 more times in 2 different spots. Heat up a section, twist, and release. And the last section, twist, and release. Alright. So now heat up the back 1 more time. All those little twist points are now stress points and also have some texture, and you want to make sure you get rid of that before you move on to the next step. Alright, so next I'm going to take my cobalt blue and we're going to make a background. Now this is going to be very similar to when you put your background on your mushroom bead, except this time we're actually going to have to paint it on and around the entire piece as we go. So get the tip of your color real hot. You're going to focus on making sure that all of the little frit pieces that you've laid down are covered, but not much more than that. So press it in and rotate your piece, not the rod. Keep that rod in the flame. And then once you get it all the way around, hit it at an angle, and you want to make sure you're not catching any air bubbles this entire way. Now the goal in that whole process is to gather as little blue onto the piece as you possibly can. If you just gather as much as you need, as much as you can during the process, your bead's going to be huge. So you're trying to lay it on in a fairly thin layer that will cover up the actual work that has been done, so you only view it through the lens on the front. So now you're going to heat this whole thing up. You don't want it to become a ball again, but you want that blue to melt in completely to your disc. So see, you want to hit the edge of the angle, because you'll see there's a seam where the blue and the clear are. That's where you want to focus your heat, is right on that seam. And then once that seam has gone away, focus your heat on the back to make sure the blue melts in completely. And then you're going to set it back down on the marver to get everything to spread out. You can push a little to get that nice disc shape back. So now, blue back, all of the work that you've done is now hidden on the inside. So now you're going to grab your 6mm rod and do a cold seal to the center of the back of this piece. We're using 6mm because while heating the front of the piece, if you use 4mm, the residual heat may cause that 4mm to melt slightly, and it will cause it to droop. 6mm can sustain a little bit more heat. So once that's solid, heat the spot right where the disc ends and the rod begins. And you want to separate and flame cut at that point. You don't want to leave a whole chunk of glass left, but you do need to have some left over to kind of melt in with the rest of the face of your piece. So now I got kind of a button thing going on. So now, you want to focus your heat on the top ridge of the front of the clear of your disc. Doing that will cause the front of your disc to melt. The residual heat is going to hit that nub that you have left over, and everything should melt into itself, creating a nice smooth surface. You can also kind of rotate it really quickly to help it along. That will help things spread out a little easier, but don't do it too much or you're going to, deform your bead. It's better to just have patience, keep your piece in the flame, let it get hot, let it do its thing. And then move your hand down at a downward angle to let everything kind of settle. And you can see it still got a little hot. If it got a little hot, you can put it on an angle marver like this and just rotate, and you'll see how it straightened itself out. But now you can kind of see the disc shape that we were going for. And you can see some of the color in there too. Alright, so this project we're actually going to add a colored handle, or loop rather. I just think it looks better. You can add a clear one, it doesn't make any difference. But I like to add the loop that matches whatever color I used as my background. So without rotating, heat one spot and heat the loop. You want them both to be really hot when you touch it together so it just stays. Just like that. Tap off your back handle. You can reattach with a 6mm or do what I like to do, which is switch over to a 4mm. And add your handle to the bottom with a cold seal. Now, the difference between this loop and the loops that we've done previous is 6mm is not big enough for a loop. So we're actually going to have to gather glass up before we do our pull through the loop. So see how I'm heating a large section and kind of pushing slightly? That is going to gather up the blue into a larger diameter. You want to get a nice, reasonable sized chunk of glass. And you also want to make sure you hit that seam where the blue meets your piece. And that will help that melt in so you don't have any kind of stress in your final product. Alright. So we got a nice chunk of blue there. Same process. Down and away. Not going to hold it as long because my color is not as hot. And then down. Color moves very differently than clear, and every color can move differently than every other color if it so chooses. So the colored loop is going to take a little bit more practice until you get an understanding of how that particular color moves. But the process is the same. Now we're just going to heat the back of the loop, press it to the back of the bead, melt in that connection point, change the loop structure a little bit, make it look a little prettier, and make sure it's straight. Alright, once that's cool, grab it through, tap off the bottom, make sure you hit that seam for that last handle, but also don't forget you have that seam on the very back from your first handle. Make sure you hit that as well. Your bead. Toss that one in the kiln and it's on to the next. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. If you enjoy the content, like the video, hit that subscribe button, and then if you want to support the channel further, check us out on Patreon at Vulcan Glass TV. I'll see you in the next one.